a test case now for us to build that trust back. And so if the 77 million, and this came up at the Measure C Bond Oversight Committee meeting the other night, the aesthetic versus the deferred maintenance. And so if going forward we continue just with deferred maintenance, people are frustrated out there that we're not really modernizing or enhancing the schools. So they're going to judge us, should we sell the 77 million, they're going to judge us based on what is accomplished with that money. And if it's, you know, not something that really meets wide community needs, we're going to have some problems going forward. Then there's a whole conversation after we get past the 77 million. The next real conversation going forward is the trust building and the necessity or need. And I think it has to be clearly detailed and outlined. I'm not just one who says, because we've already raised the tax rate and we're all paying that. And I'm not one who says, let's just fire through another bond just to keep building, because those are our tax rates, and those are, people are not necessarily really happy with that concept that I'm just going to put more money after this. So it's a large picture. The sale of the 77 million to me just isn't let's sell 77 million. It's much larger than that. It's symbolic of what we want to do as a district and what we're going to give the taxpayers for their money. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, let me just jump in with one quick comment. And I think you nailed it in your last comment. I know it feels uneasy now. I know it feels like a lot of agony and pain. But with a few deliberate decisions moving forward. So for example, obviously there are savings from the solar. One would assume those savings then resulted in additional staff being kept on or other, but that information has to be transmitted somehow. It has to be given to voters. Information about how you've structured this bond sale in a way that protects taxpayers. And a few deliberate decisions like that, within 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, wherever you happen to be in this process, you can have this district set up in a way that will have an ongoing source of funding far into the future. Not every few years you're sitting here talking about this, but an ongoing source far into the future to allow you to do the kinds of repairs and technological infrastructure needs and technological equipment needs that will set you on a course for 20, 30 years. That's going to take a few deliberate decisions as you try to figure out how you got here today, which is why it took so long building that up to show you where you are now and then going forward.
And that's exactly right. We would owe it to the taxpayers to show them the returns and what that went to purchase from all of this. Any other questions about this? Because this is a different slant on things and a little different perspective. And we won't have another meeting until April 20th when we are going to agendize this for action. So this is your last chance. I suppose if questions arose, that's still several weeks away. Can we try to get those answered on the side? Mrs. Oaks?
Well, you know, looking at this and after listening to your presentation, I think Mr. Cody would need to show us some more information about, and I know you did some at the last meeting, but exactly if we decided to sell only half, or if we decided to sell pieces off, what could we accomplish on the project list that we have, so that we have that all in front of us with some different ways of getting the money and using it for the projects that need completion immediately and those that can wait a couple of years.
Well, I mentioned at the last meeting that to have it kind of in a short, abbreviated form, what those projects are, kind of a one-page cheat sheet, because Mr. Cody's put a lot of time and effort into that website with incredible detail, but more of us are probably low information people just pulling it up and saying, where's the list? So I don't know if it's possible to take that over with a list like that to show what could be divided up should we do something shorter term.
Yeah.
That could be on the website as well.
Yeah.
Hey, leaning over. Since the last meeting, I apologize, I was missing a page, I wasn't aware of a page that we actually had on there since the website went live, where there is a short format list of projects that the board took action on, where it's as simple as roof replacement, window replacement, those types of items. So if you go to the Measure C webpage and you click on where it says more information, you will get a short list of the projects that were included in the original scope of work that we had planned.
Is it possible, I view this previous work as already done. What I'm looking at is 77 million left to sell. That really, to me, is what is left. So what I'm kind of looking for in terms of voters too is what is left for that 77 million? Should we, hand you off a check today and say, here's 77 million? What is that specifically going to finish, or new projects it will accomplish? And then should that be split, say, into two, as Mrs. Oakes is asking, two segments? What impact would that have? And somehow, if there's a way to post it as, the 77 million left, it's really, that's the part I think that I'm looking at for the voters, and I don't know about the rest of the board, but it sounds like that's what we're looking at, is what's left to finish that is impacted by that 77 million, and can it be highlighted as the 77 million?
I can tell the board that since the last study session, what we're looking at is mainly in the modernization phase. So when you go to the website and you go to the modernization, that is the scope of work that's remaining. We've completed all the work that the board had asked us to do in terms of the mechanical, in terms of the technology infrastructure, in terms of the resource conservation, and the main scope that's remaining is in the modernization, and this is a list that's been on there, so I apologize that I forgot about this page. So this is going to the modernization, going to the more, and this talks about the specific projects that are left in the modernization scope of work.
Would that be the 77 million, or are there parts of that parts of it that on some of the schools it would be done and some it wouldn't, because some of those things are done?
That is correct. As the board had requested, we expedited the replacement of the lock cylinders. We've expedited portions of the building program. That included both the middle school science buildings and the portable replacements, which were originally in the modernization scope of work. We also recently completed the security replacement. That was originally in the modernization scope. So what we're looking at is those items on this list that are still pending work, and that's what we're planning.
Yeah, my understanding from your last presentation was it was roofs, it was windows, it was asphalt at different schools that you were grouping, and you'd get as far as you could get with the 77 million, and you had group one you were going to start, and then you keep going and just getting as much done as you used to. I understood you had a lot more work than 77 million, that's just all the money you had.
That is correct, and this is just what they were considering the building integrity, or the shell items that needed to be replaced. The original list did include an extensive list of interior classroom modifications and things like that, but it wasn't funded with the 348 that was voted on.
By the way, I'd just like to say here, none of this reflects on Mr. Cody or Mr. Peterson. They have been stunningly hardworking and thoughtful about this. This is not in any way, shape, or form reflective of any problems there. You two have just really rallied, and under a lot of pressure and a lot of firestorms around you, and you've done a great job. I don't think that's the concern at all that I hear. It's the really, the modernization or the aesthetics versus the deferred maintenance piece. Mr. Ferrani, did you want to use your public comment?
Real quick before, what I would like to see before I can make a decision is this list of the solar savings and where that's going each year, because I think it's supposed to be a savings we see every year. And I would like to see, and I don't know, this will take some digging, or maybe Linda has it, what was that original project list that was attached to the passage of the first bond, because I think we had to have that language in there, not after, but before the bond was passed.
Which bond are you?
The
2010.
2010.
2010 was an extenuation of the 2002 list.
They paid off 2000.
So it should still be somewhere. I'm sure we had to campaign.
Reminder about this thing.
Okay.
So we can look for that information regarding the 2010 language. The solar savings may be more difficult to find, and I'm not speaking with a lot of research in this subject, but if items were not isolated for cuts, it's very difficult to say what we would have lost. So we can certainly track the amount of money that we've had for the last few years as a result of the savings and the energy savings. But regarding the cut, I know there are some cut lists that I've seen and some possibilities that were discussed, but it would be very hard to find that nexus. We can certainly discuss this more, and if there's some specifics you'd like, I can get those for you.